Hello and welcome to Adina Talks Money. This is Adina and this is part of my 30-day audio challenge, podcast challenge that I'm doing. And the title of today's piece is quite an interesting one, and I've never actually done any content like this before, but I really felt compelled to do it. I wrote an article about it today and I really want to talk about this topic because I think it's quite important. Even though my channel is mostly talking about positive content, positive topics, helping people build digital product businesses and all of that, and also a little bit of making money online generally. But I think this is important, especially for the women out there that are really pushing to achieve more. You know, some women want to achieve more. Some women don't want to just rest on their laurels and allow a man to take care of them. Some women don't have any choice because they've got children and they're single parents. You know, there's many reasons why a woman would want to really level up and achieve more. I know back in the day, you know, it was different. It was different when, gender roles were really defined and the man was the breadwinner and the woman was the stay-at-home mum and all of that. Times have changed. Things have changed. Women's mentalities have changed. Some women don't even want to get married and have kids. Some women just want to be ambitious and work hard and achieve their goals and build financial stability and financial security. So the topic of this piece is, why do men who are failing try to humble successful women? And I've noticed that it's not even just the men that are failing, but it's worse with the men that are failing, the men that are struggling, the men that are not living the life that they want to live, the men that are bitter and they're, and I'm not saying this as a male bashing piece of content. I don't hate men. I don't have anything against men. You know how some women, that's how they are. They're just bitter towards men. Every man they've got some kind of problem with. No, that's not me at all. But something happened today that compelled me to actually create this piece of content. So I really want to just get into it. So last week I signed a massive contract with a well-known tech company. The kind of deal that makes the grind worth it. I haven't told a lot of people this thing. I've not really mentioned it to many people. I only told a select few people. They even sent me a few gifts as a result of the contract that I got. I was really excited. I was proud. So, naturally I shared the news with a few people, but specifically with a male friend who works as an employee at a company. He's just an employee. He doesn't have a business or anything like that. And this is someone who is in a situation that he would rather not be in, basically. He would rather work for himself, but hasn't had the opportunity so far. His response was this: you need to put yourself in check. And I didn't really get what that meant, actually. And then he went on to say that the reason why you need to put yourself in check is because you haven't signed the contract yet. So you need to just stop talking about it. But he didn't say it in a way like of concern, like, oh, stop speaking about it, because if you talk about it and you haven't signed the contract yet, it's like you're speaking about it prematurely. And he didn't actually know that I had already received the contract. I just hadn't signed it because I was still in the process of reviewing the contract to ensure that I was happy with all the terms in the contract. I didn't mention that to him. All I mentioned was that I had received this. I had been accepted onto this contract, and he was like, "You've only received an offer. It's not set in stone yet. So you need to pull yourself into line and humble yourself." And later on, that's pretty much what he said. It wasn't the first time this kind of thing happened either. I've seen it before from exes, male friends, colleagues, especially when they're struggling or feeling stuck. My ex, who was successful in his own right, would subtly undercut my wins. If I earned more or hit a milestone he hadn't, there'd be this quiet tension. Every time I celebrated something, he tried to bring me back down. It's a strange pattern. Women rise, men around them shrink, and instead of clapping, some try to dim their light. I find this to be quite disturbing because I've noticed this is not just a man towards a woman. I've noticed that some men can be like this towards male friends as well. And when, you know, one male friend does really well, it's like there's some kind of tension, some kind of sort of, and it's not the type of tension that makes that person feel like, okay, you know what, I need to level up as well, but in the best way possible. Not level up because I want to, you know, flex on this other person, but level up because we all need to be winning in this circle. You know, all of us need to be winning. You know, I'm the kind of person that I want everyone around me to win. I don't want to be the only one winning and everyone else is struggling. I want to see other people win. And that's probably one of the reasons why I've almost been a bit of a people pleaser over the years. I've been a giver over the years, because I always come into contact with people that need some kind of support. Like they need help. They need some kind of information that's going to help them to propel them to the next level. And so I'm always saying, oh, you know, I'll meet someone and I'll say, oh, you know, you can make money online. You can go on this website. You can do this. You can do that. Or you can, you know, there's some work that I can help you with. And I'm always trying to do that. And today I had this epiphany. I had this moment of perceptive clarity. I'm going to go on to the next bit about the psychology behind humble her energy in a minute. But I had this moment of perceptive clarity where I was like, do you know what? I'm actually tired of being that person that is always trying to help people and always trying to motivate people. And these same people that I'm trying to motivate and help and support are the same people that when I achieve something, it turns into a whole thing of, you need to shut up and humble yourself, sit down. And the funny thing is, I'm not allowed, as much as I'm a talkative person, I'm not a loud person. And what that means is I'm not loud in the sense that I'm not out there. Like, if I was to go to a party, I wouldn't be the life and soul of that party. I wouldn't be the one that's talking and everyone's around me and all of that. I'm a talkative person, but I'm only talkative with people that I want to talk to. I'm not talkative with everybody. I'm generally an introverted person. So when someone tries to sort of say, sit down and humble yourself, I find it very disturbing, because I'm someone who, if I'm going to tell you about my win, I'm telling you because I want to share it with somebody. You know, when you achieve something, you want to share it with someone. You don't just want to keep it to yourself. You feel like you want to shout it from the rooftops. You want everyone to know about it. And this is something I haven't spoken about on social media. I haven't told anyone about this contract in terms of being on social. I've only spoken about it with the people that I know personally. And this is the result of it. So what's, you know, the psychology behind humble her energy. There's a term floating around social media, humble her. You know, it describes a phenomenon where insecure men feel threatened by women's success, so they downplay it, criticize it, or mock it, often under the guise of keeping her grounded. You know, this is not humility they're offering, it's ego preservation. You know, for generations, society positioned men as the providers, protectors, and pinnacles of success. So when a woman achieves something extraordinary, especially in spaces once dominated by men like tech or entrepreneurship, it can trigger deep, often unacknowledged feelings of inadequacy. And instead of processing that discomfort, some men try to neutralize it by controlling the narrative. She's doing too much. She's acting full of herself. She needs to calm down. Translation, she's reminding me of my own unfulfilled potential, and I don't know how to deal with that. It reminds me of when I purchased an apartment. This was years ago in London. I purchased this apartment. It was a new build apartment, and this was before I even became a mum. I purchased this new build apartment, and the person I was dating at the time, I remember that particular apartment was such a pinnacle moment in my life. And the reason why was because that particular place was it was in such a prominent area, and it was, for me to get it at that price was just, it was like a miracle. And it was huge, a massive apartment with floor to ceiling windows. Everything about that apartment was exactly what I envisioned in my dreams, and everything I manifested. And I remember the guy that I was with at the time, he came into the apartment, and I remember he was wearing a full suit because he had just come from work. And he stood in the middle of the room because I had no furniture, and he put his hands in his pockets and he was like, oh, I need to get one of these. And I was like, yeah, you should speak to the realtor and see what he says, if there's any available in this building or in the next building, because there were 2 buildings. And he was like, yeah, and he walked out onto the balcony and he was like angry, like this kind of anger. And then the whole evening was just spent kind of like just making little digs at me the whole time. And I was like, what do you mean? Why are you doing this? And eventually I just told him to go. And it ruined everything, basically, because I had managed to buy an apartment first. And I just feel like if you, as a man, if you feel so inadequate because of a woman achieving more than you in quotes, then level up and do more. Then stop feeling inadequate and work harder. It's really not that difficult. Yes, it's difficult to get up and do all the things, but just get up and do more. I don't know if you've ever heard of or watched this guy on YouTube called Brandon Carter. I haven't seen him in a while, but a lot of people say he's arrogant. He's got so much ego. And to be quite honest with you, I would prefer to be with someone like that, because a man like this that has all this ego and all this whatever arrogance or whatever it is, mostly men like that can never, ever, ever, ever feel comfortable being broke. They will never beg for money from anybody. They'd rather work 10 jobs. This guy, he said he pulled himself out of poverty by working, I think it was 3 jobs he was working at one point, or it was 2 jobs and also running a business on the side. So he built, I think he was working a security job and working in construction or something, and he was also building a business on the side, and he was doing YouTube and doing all these other things. And he managed to save $100,000 in like a short space of time from just grinding his ass off, basically, because he knew he was built for more. But some men can sit in a normal job and complain and moan and look at other women like they are, that are achieving more, like they are just, and they'll use the word arrogant towards that woman, like she's arrogant. Why is she so arrogant? But why are you not doing something to achieve more? This person that I'm talking about would constantly be like, oh, I'm broke, I don't have any money, I'm struggling, I need help, I'm struggling, I've got no money. And I'm like, that's not my problem. Go out there and work, do something. I mean, you've got a job, but do something else on the side, do something else on the extra. And a lot of people see it like, oh, well, it's difficult to find another job, or it's difficult to get another job or a better job. There's so many opportunities now that don't require like you to go out and get a job. I would say, well, why don't you look for something to do online? Why don't you do social media? Like, why don't you build a social media page and start to, sell digital products, or, I'm trying to give ideas. And it's like, oh, I can't do those things now because I need to focus on this, or I need to focus. I'm like, then stop complaining about being broke then. Anyway, success isn't masculine or feminine, it's human. Now, what's ironic is that women are taught from early on to shrink themselves. Don't brag, don't outshine, don't make men uncomfortable. We're socialised to be modest to the point of self-erasure. Meanwhile, men are often socialised to attach their worth to dominance and achievement. So when that dominance is challenged, even by someone they love, they perceive it as a threat to their identity. It's funny because I remember talking of that same apartment that I purchased, when I first purchased the apartment, it was so brand new. It was brand new that it had literally just been finished, and all the construction dust, some of it was still on the floor, on the wooden floor. I mean, the rest of the place had been cleaned, but the construction dust was so much that they had just swept it and left the floor like that. And so it wasn't like it needed to be mopped and, thoroughly swept. In fact, it needed some kind of like professional cleaning. I didn't have the equipment for it, and so I called up a cleaning company and said, I need someone to come and clean my apartment. And I explained to them it's just been constructed. And so this woman came, and she was from Ghana, funnily enough. That's where my parents were born. And I straight away knew she was from Ghana just from looking at her face. But she started speaking. I knew she was from Ghana. I was like, "Oh, you're Ghanaian?" She said, "Yeah." And as we continued to talk and talk and talk, she started asking me questions. And she was like, "Oh, where's your husband?" Because she could see this apartment was like really nice, expensive apartment. And she was like, "Where's your husband?" And I said, "I don't have one." And she was like, "How did you afford this place?" She goes, "Are you renting this place?" I said, "No, I purchased it." And she was like, "How did you afford it?" That's the first question she asked me. "How did you afford it?" And I said, "Oh, I have my own business." She said, "What type of business is that?" And I said, at that time, I was building my content writing business and my blogging business as well. So what had actually made me the money was my content writing, freelancing, and outsourcing. That was what helped me. And she was like, "Oh," and then she said to me, "You're never going to find a husband because you need to shrink yourself. You need to come down for a man." She said "come down." I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she said "calm down." I was like, "What do you mean calm down?" She said, "No, come down," meaning I need to shrink myself so that my man can feel bigger than me. And I was like, "What?" And she said, "When you're too successful as a woman, you'll find it hard to get a man." She said that you need to come down. You need to bring yourself down to a lower level, because if you don't, no man is going to want you because they're going to see you as being a threat to them. And I said, "That's not my problem. That's their problem. They have that's their insecurity. That's not mine." And she said, "Well, unless you find a man who is really, really rich, and even still with the really, really rich ones, they don't want a woman who is too successful. They want a woman that will keep their mouth shut." So she was like, most rich men normally go for waitresses and women that work in like customer service and stuff like that, and then they'll take them out of poverty and give them a better life, but they will not want them to work. So she was saying, "You're going to find it very, very difficult to get somebody because they are going to want you to be like lower than them." You know, success isn't masculine or feminine. It's human. It's the product of effort, risk, resilience, and a bit of divine timing. And it deserves celebration, not censorship. You know, when a man truly knows who he is, he doesn't need to humble anyone. He celebrates her, knowing her win doesn't diminish him. In fact, he sees it as proof that greatness is possible in his circle. I only know one man in this whole entire world that I know of personally that doesn't have that mindset. I'm not going to reveal who that person is, but I only know one man that does not have this behaviour. Maybe it means I need better male friends. I mean, I'm generally someone who I don't have a lot of male friends. I'm not really into the male friend thing. I always find it gets quite complicated. You know, so for me, it's like friends from back in the day that I would rather sort of connect with. You know, when I say one man, I'm going to lie. I'm lying there. I know two men. One who is a friend from way back in the day, from when I was in secondary school, and he's someone who is not a hater at all. He just doesn't have it in him. He doesn't look at women and feel like, oh, they should shrink themselves or whatever it is. And then there's another man as well. But you know, this is I want to talk about the insecurity epidemic. Struggling with my words right now. You know, we're living in a time where men's traditional roles are shifting faster than their emotional adaptability. So a lot of men were taught how to compete, not how to coexist, especially with powerful women. So when they're not winning in the way society told them they should, they start to feel lost. And rather than facing that internal storm, they lash out externally, often toward the woman who's doing what they wish they could do. But the truth is, her success isn't failure, and her confidence isn't his enemy. And if he could step out of ego and into growth, he might even realise that her energy could be the rising tide that lifts them both. You know, the real flex isn't money, status or titles. It's emotional intelligence. It's being so secure in yourself that you can celebrate someone else without envy sneaking in. You know, when I received that contract and the gifts that came with it, I didn't need external validation. But I was open to joy. I wanted to share the win, not as a boast, but as a moment of light. And the response I got reminded me that not everyone is ready to stand in the glow with you. Some people mistake your confidence for arrogance because it mirrors back their own self-doubt. But here's the truth. I've learned you don't have to dim your light to make anyone comfortable. Those who are meant for your orbit will find strength and not fret in your shine. You know, if your success makes someone uncomfortable, let it. If your joy makes someone defensive, let it. You're not responsible for managing other people's insecurities. And you're responsible for honouring your growth, your gifts and your evolution. The men who try to humble you are revealing something not about your ego, but about their own fragility. And the right man, he'll never ask you to shrink. He'll hand you the champagne and say, you earned this. If you really enjoyed this piece and you're building your own version of success, one that's rooted in purpose, power and alignment, come and join me inside my upcoming 90-day accelerator starting January 3rd. It's designed to help you create consistent 10k months from your digital products without shrinking your light or your ambition. And there are 8 pre-launch spots left. So let's make your next win one that nobody can humble. So I'm going to leave a link in the description for my 90-day accelerator. The 90-day accelerator, currently we're going through the 90-day accelerator, and the next one is going to come up on on January 3rd, 2026. We have 8 pre-launch spots available for that right now. So like I said, I'm going to leave the link in the description for that. I hope you enjoyed this. This is day 3 of my podcast, 30 days of podcast. And it's also day 21 of my 500 posts in 30 days. And I'm really happy with how I've done so far with that. And I'll talk about it. But when I'm done with the 500 post challenge, I'll talk more about it and what I've actually learned throughout this time. Thank you so much and take care.